The Barbados Workers Union wants to see a reduction in the rates charged by the Barbados Light and Power Company, and General Secretary Senator Sir Roy Trotman has indicated that the two organizations are discussing ways to give consumers an ease. He says the union wants to give the company more flexibility to relax its charges as it continues negotiations for a new collective agreement. Sir Roy says the union wants to be satisfied, however, that any sacrifices from its members will play a part in a national effort to overcome the economic crisis.
This union is quite anxious to play its role, but wants to develop a scheme which would show that the workers' concessions are being reflected in a reduction in energy cost to the consumer. The Barbados Workers Union is aware that by agreeing to flexibilization in the company's regular open hours and by relaxing the collective agreement as it relates to some overtime payment provisions, there should be a reduction in the charges which consumers face.
The Town and Country Planning Department is tonight mounting a defense against accusations that it's preventing development because of slow approvals. Deputy Chief Town Planner George Brown says a majority of applications are processed in 3 months.
Our statistics show that in terms of the processing of applications, we process in excess of 75% of the applications submitted annually within a 3 months period. But then there are some applications which take much longer, especially those that involve the requirements for an environmental impact assessment. And then there are others which we have to do external consultations, whether it would be the Barbados Water Authority, the Ministry of Transport and Works.
Mr. Brown says the department is also hindered by inadequate information about the development.
When we have to request additional information, that is when information that is submitted by the application, that accompanies the application, is either deficient or did not give us enough information. So there are cases where we have to request that additional information.
The Royal Barbados Police Force has noted an increase in firearms and burglaries. This from Assistant Commissioner Erwin Boyce, with responsibility for territorial policing. He says these are the challenges facing the force. According to the Assistant Commissioner, the force has done an audit profile on communities which shows that some communities are more vulnerable than others.
Vulnerable in terms of having the type of leadership that we think that is absolutely necessary to change the image or the brand of the community. And we have done the profile, we have done the audit, and now we are looking at a number of programs to kind of support the improvements.
Meanwhile, the force will be making their Yuletide surveillance program more aggressive to deal with the current times. It is all inclusive to bring about more safety for the Christmas season.
It involves a number of phases and a number of activities that are definitely geared to make Barbados safe. There may be some inconveniences, there may be some challenges, but it will make Barbados safe, and we will feel safe, have a peace of mind and a sense of peace in terms of going about the business during the Yuletide season.
The local manufacturing sector is reportedly holding its own in the face of layoffs in the tough economic environment. But the executive director of the Barbados manufacturing sector, Bobby McKay, admits that some companies have had to make adjustments as far as employment is concerned. She shed some light on her vision for manufacturing during the launch of Phase 2 of the I'm a Bajan campaign yesterday at the offices of the BMA.
Within the manufacturing sector, there have been very little layoffs. I know of 2 companies that are working 3- and 4-day weeks, but we have not had a lot of shedding within the sector. Once again, when we keep talking about jobs and not exporting jobs, I'll give you another example. I know of a family, their grandson works at Pine Hill, and they'll go and buy South American juice. And it's just, Barbadians need to make the connect. We need to understand that this is a relative that you have, that you're supporting. We really need to hold hands and walk together, because that's the only way we're going to get out of this mess.
Well, news from the BMA also indicates that some local manufacturers have been struggling to deal with cash flow problems in the lead up to the Christmas season. But the executive director says her association has stepped in to assist.
We're finding a lot of our manufacturers who have got orders for Christmas, they had a challenge with cash flow, and we found three financial institutions who are now working with them to give them sometimes only $5,000 or $10,000. Not a lot of money. It's just enough to get the raw material to produce the product and get paid for it. That's the larger challenge that they were having, and we've just addressed that.
Barbadians have given the thumbs up to efforts to set up a prison farm at Her Majesty's Prison at Dodds. Many see it as a good idea rather than having prisoners just sit in their cells. Several Barbadians were on hand for a town hall meeting last night at the St. Philip Parish Church to hear more about the farm at the prison, voice their support for their concerns about the project. The 138-acre farm, when complete, according to consultant Dr. William Harvey, will help the institution trim thousands of dollars from its food bill.
The planned development includes the production of 30 types of vegetable crops, row crops and open feed production, and rearing of 18,000 broilers, 1,000 layers, 500 pigs, 100 cattle, 300 sheep, and 60 rabbits. Approximately 60 acres is to be allocated to livestock buildings and pasture land, and 40 acres to crop production. So in other words, what we're trying to do is set up an integrated farming enterprise.
Amid concerns about water usage and who will work on the farm, Dr. Harvey says the facility will have its own pond and inmates working on the farm will be carefully selected. Another consultant, Ezra Devonish, says efforts are on to have Dodds Prison accredited as a center of technical and vocational education.
The idea is to get these guys rehabilitated, energized, to contribute back to the community. And there must be an integral part of any training. And we will welcome any kind of assistance from outside agencies once they volunteer and they're approved by the Superintendent of Prisons.
There is a view that the Barbadian society continues to be plagued with incidents of deviance because people will see and talk rather than take action to deal with the issues. This assertion from Chairman of the Prison Fellowship Association of Barbados, Win Callender. He made the comment at the 21st anniversary launch of the Prison Fellowship Barbados Angel Tree at the Cuthbert Pilgrim Hall in Christchurch.
Far too often, there is outrage about acts of crime or acts of lewdness in our society. But alas, that outrage is generally nothing more than a 9-day wonder. And then we continue like the frog to swim.
Mr. Callender says the Prison Fellowship Association is in need of assistance in all areas. He adds there has been far too much talk about prison rehab at the political level. He thinks it's time for action.
Prisons are no longer or should no longer be a place where you lock up a fella for a number of years and what you do is let that fella out 20 years worse than he was when he went in the first instance, or 6 months worse than what he was when he went in the first instance. That is not what it should be. You lock him away, believe me, 90% of the times, that person who goes to prison will come back out and walk through your society, walk through your neighborhood, looking to see a window ajar, looking to see the lights go out, looking for any opportunity to rob you or do you worse than that.
Death is something that we all live with. This comment was made at the funeral service at the Sanctuary Empowerment Center for the life of Diana Wilson in a tribute by Minister of Education Ronald Jones. Hundreds turned out to say farewell to the educator who was well loved. In his tribute, read by Parliamentary Secretary in the Education Ministry, Senator Harry Husbands said, Ms. Wilson loved her students.
We must not stifle our tears. We must not say we will not mourn. For in mourning, we give expression to how deeply we feel about that person. there is a deep and indelible impact that is made on our lives by those who touch us. We wish we could have said to them how truly we cared and loved them when they walked amongst us. But we always seem to put off for tomorrow that which should be done today.
Ms. Wilson's daughter, Janika, remembered her mom for her helpfulness, punctuality and meticulousness, and as a woman who attended the relay fair every year.
I recall us leaving very early on mornings at 5:30 a.m. was her ideal time to leave in order to arrive at work at 6 a.m. sharp. So she'd be seated in the car at 5:29 a.m. and I am inside scrambling. If I got into the car at 5:32 a.m., I would hear, "You have me late," when I don't respect people's time. And for those of you who know Di, don't make sport, will know she left me many a morning. For her, it was a lesson taught.
Barbados has not totally lost out on tourist arrivals following the postponement of the Rihanna Diamonds World Tour, which was to be held at Kensington Oval on the 1st of the month. News is that many of those who were to attend that show are now coming in for the Food and Wine and Rum Festival 2013, which runs from November the 21st to the 25th. Director of Premier Event Services Incorporated, Jerry Ishmael, tells CBC News that they've been pushing the festival, especially in the US. As a result, there's been a 15% increase in tourists coming in for the festival annually, and expectations are for a 10 to 12% increase in visitor arrivals this year. Bookings are already up by 5%, and he says you can add to that some of those people who plan to attend the Rihanna show.
A lot of people have said to us, have called us and said, you know, we were coming for Rihanna, but now that Rihanna is not happening, we are going to come for Food and Wine. So Barbados as a destination has not totally lost out on that.
Mr. Ishmael also revealed that they're taking the Food and Wine and Rum Festival to Oistins.
What we're trying to do, or what we expect to be able to do, is to create a hive of activity in Oistin on the Thursday night, to actually recreate what happens on Friday to happen on Thursday. It's basically creating an economic opportunity for the vendors in Oistin. We're not having an event per se. There's going to be nothing special that we are doing at Oistin. It's all about the vendors. We feel that Oistin is a destination or in Barbados that can carry its own weight.
A homework and reading program has been launched for children in the New Orleans and Pickwick Gap districts. This from Assistant Commissioner Irwin Boyce with responsibility for territorial policing. Assistant Commissioner Boyce says 15 children have shown an interest thus far and that the program is to assist those between the ages of 5 to 11. He has made a call for more tutors.
It's going to be an evening program, and it's going to be driven primarily by persons who are just interested, tutors who are just interested in helping people. And we, in addition to Pan America, we want to thank those persons who said, volunteer and said, well, okay, I can help you, or I can make use of some extra time that I have. And that's all we want. We want people to volunteer. We want people to come back to communities and give of their best.
The Assistant Commissioner was speaking at a press conference where the Pan American Life Insurance handed over a donation of $2,100 for materials. He pointed out that each community faces its own challenges and that residents need to value life.
Because as a law enforcement agency, one of the things we do is offer support, offer guidance, build capacity in terms of developing people within neighborhoods. We recognize too that from time to time these communities are challenged from the perspective that is some elements within the community that take leadership. Yes. That take leadership in providing some comfort to members of the community. And
a Barbadian senator believes there is still not enough accessible daycare facilities for the elderly in Barbados. Medical doctor and Professor Emeritus, Senator Dr. Henry Fraser, is suggesting that the church use its huge pool of land resources to help the state in this cause. He made the remark during the Kiwani's International Installation Ceremony and Dinner at the Radisson Aquatica Resort. Ron Brathwaite reports.
Professor Fraser told the Kiwanians that Barbados in many circles have become a cold place in its treatment of the elderly. He says many of these people who have made a significant contribution to the society in their former years are in many instances now being abandoned and left at the mercy of the state for care. Professor Fraser, a historian by profession, lamented the fact that many of the elderly are treated in the same manner as old buildings in Barbados.
We abandon and we leave to decay old buildings as soon as the paint is peeling or the roof is leaking, and we abandon and leave to decay old people as soon as their face is peeling and their bladder is leaking. And they become a burden to us.
Dr. Fraser says the church needs to play a greater role in the enabling of daycare facilities for the elderly. According to him, with a vast amount of resources owned by the institution, it could be doing more.
If every major church here would establish a daycare center with the help of service clubs like the Kiwanis, there would be vast savings to government, to the elderly and their families, and to the rest of us. Our senior citizens would be active mentally and physically, and health costs would be less. Relatives wouldn't have to give up work to give care.
Professor Fraser says such an act would also foster greater family relations if elderly and children's daycare centers were housed in proximity with each other.
That our neglect, disregard, and scandalous treatment of old buildings, often treasures that mean the world to many people, like the Carnegie Public Library, for example, is a reflection of our attitude to old people as well.
Professor Fraser says the elderly have a lot to offer, and improving care for them would save families and by extension taxpayers millions of dollars in healthcare services in the long run. Ron Brathwaite, CBC News.
Well, it's feeling a lot more like independence, especially at night. It was at the flick of a switch when Bridgetown was lit up during the official lighting ceremony last Sunday. And now the island's roundabouts have come alive at night with lights depicting Barbadian heritage and some of our local sporting heroes. Well, who's paying that light bill, you may ask? The lighting displays are sponsored by a number of local companies and financial institutions.